Hello and welcome to Grimm's Horror Tales. Hopefully, you had a wonderful day, or whatever had occurred. I hope it's very positive. Before we start, make sure you breathe in and breathe out. Go grab yourself something to eat. Go grab yourself something to drink. Go grab yourself whatever makes you comfortable. I'll give you 10 seconds. You can skip forward ahead or whatever works for you. Within those 10 seconds, we will then go into our first story. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Without further ado, our first story. You're going to notice a woman in your home. You must ignore her by any means necessary. It was December of 1999 when she manifested in her quiet Midwestern home. My father called me from downstairs. I assumed it was time for dinner. I was standing at the bottom of the stairs, and he had his hand up in an effort to keep me from coming down. Within that moment, I saw the panic within his eyes, and something was extremely wrong. I felt my blood run cold. I want you to listen to me very carefully, he said. My heart began to race as he continued. It's very important you keep your eyes on me. You're going to notice someone in the house, and you must ignore her as much as possible. I almost started laughing after he said that, my 12-year-old mind trying to comprehend what he was getting at. Assuming this was some out of character joke, before I could respond, he continued. She's going to whisper something. Anything. She's going to follow you, and whatever else she can get to do to, especially for your attention. He stumbled and broke apart in his words. It's going to be very difficult, son, he swallowed. But you must never interact with her. I promise she will leave, but only if you pretend she isn't there, and try not to even think about her. Promise me, he said. There were so many things I wanted to ask him, but this time I was genuinely frightened and confused. I managed to spit out, "Okay, Dad," in a very low tone. "All right, come downstairs. It's time for dinner. Hurry. I've made her stronger just by telling you. But I had to because I can't afford you looking at her by mistake. Trust me. Now stay focused," he yelled at me. I did as I was told and slowly crept down the stairs, keeping my eyes glued to my father as he backpedaled into the kitchen. The temperature dropped significantly once I reached the first floor. I smelled a familiar, sickening and sour scent in the air. It reminded me of a dead raccoon in our wall last week whenever it stunk up the entire house. My father and I sat down at the same time. My sister was across from me. Her head hung and her eyes stared at the empty porcelain plate in front of her. My mother pulled a casserole out of the oven. Her eyes were swollen and tear-stained. Everybody seemed on edge. I kept my focus on my family, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw a blurry mess of dark, matted hair, sickly, gray skin. There was no energy in the kitchen. All the warmth and laughter that we usually had, accompanied by our meals, gone. My sister grabbed my knee from underneath the table and whispered, "Can you see her too?" I nodded my head. "Quiet!" my father hissed. The woman walked forward with wet, crackling footsteps. The smell was nauseating. She crept towards the table, stopping directly behind my sister, only a few inches away, and rested a decrepit hand on her shoulder. She winced in fear and stared at me. I immediately put my head down. My mom served dinner, doing her best to pretend everything was okay. I could see my dad clutching my sister's hand underneath the glass table in an attempt to keep her from completely losing it. My sister spent the entire dinner with that skeletal hand on her shoulder. Nearly inaudible whispers spewed from the woman's mouth and filled the room like white noise. If you were in a situation, what would you do? Hopefully not freak out and panic. Let's all not even think about what would happen if this were to occur. And that's how we lived for months, doing our best to live a normal life despite the ever-present unwanted guests. Even if we left the house, she followed all of us. Whenever we were in the car, she was always seen in the rearview mirror or standing on the side of the road. My dad and mom never let anyone visit, and they never let us stay at any of our friends' homes during the months of that decrepit hell. We were able to whisper to each other whenever we found it absolutely necessary to discuss her presence if she wasn't too close. My dad made us promise to never, ever tell anyone. That was the only way to quarantine her. The parasite of attention is what we dubbed her. We concluded that she infected a single household at a time, unable to be seen by anyone outside the home unless their mind had been tainted with the knowledge of her existence. I learned a few years later that my father was the reason for her arrival. His sister back in the 70s had been infected from another, and it followed all the way into my aunt's home. In 1999, for whatever reason, my dad struggled to keep that thought of her at bay. In turn, he brought her back into his life, which in turn brought it back to ours. We kept the promise of keeping her a secret from others, and it was the hardest thing we've ever done. We always left the house as a group, but she always followed. We couldn't bring ourselves to bring our family apart. But for our mom, it struck her the hardest. She was always stuck alone with her work and everything else that consumed her time. But she was mainly a housewife. Meanwhile, my father would be at work. But everything changed oh no. Everything changed the day my mother broke. It was a snowy February night. We just finished dinner and my mom decided to go to bed early. She just sat on the bed, making herself almost impossible to ignore. Mom couldn't take it. We heard her screaming from the bedroom, demanding to leave all of us alone. My dad sprinted upstairs in a very, very, very hectic way I had never seen before to try and stop her. That was the last time I ever saw my mother. A pool of blood on a white carpet was all that remained. The woman was there, but my mom was gone. In the following weeks, she whispered to me always told me I could see her again. All I had to do was look and ask how. I never did. Never. The reason I am telling you is because I want you to think about her. I saw her again this morning for the first time in 18 years. I cannot afford to lose my wife or children to this fucking parasite. And you need to think about her dark hair and her gray skin. You think about her fucking now so she can leave my family alone. So that way what happened to me won't happen to my family. You're already infected, and eventually you're going to notice a woman in your home. You must ignore her. It's for your own good. I am very sorry for doing this to you. Well, it seems we're all fucked in some regards. If you can see a woman within this room, well, I'm already fucked myself. As for you, you have a better chance than I do. But I think we can all agree on one thing. Sure, this guy is protecting his own and everything, but he's an asshole. Well, let's make do with what we got before the woman ends up appearing, manifesting, starts whispering and more, especially to you and to me. Let's carry on like nothing happened. Hopefully. There's a man who follows me around and narrates my life. And he's starting to say some very unsettling things. He's always been here, although I actually don't know if it's a he or a she. And I always don't want to assume anything. The voice definitely sounds like a male, but I've never seen their face, always their back. They wear a black trench coat with a popped collar, so that all I can see is the very top of their head and part of their black boots. I can't communicate with them, which is odd, and I figured this out a few years back. He just stands a few feet away from me at all times, his back towards me, narrating my entire life. No one else can see him, except for me. I figured this out a few years back as well. Nor can they hear him. My day usually starts off the same. I wake up to the same sentence. Natalia wakes up and rolls over in her bed. Every single day, he says that, because that is what I do. It's all very mundane. My life is not that interesting after all. I've sort of learned how to live with it, and I can almost tune him out now. I've never really told anyone about him because, well, who would believe me? So I don't have much of a choice but to just deal with it. About a week ago, I cooked dinner. Some mashed potatoes and black bean tacos. Tuning him out like normal. I was chopping up some cilantro for my tacos, however, he said something that caught my attention. Natalia is innocently chopping cilantro without any knowledge that she is in grave danger. I froze, knife in the middle of the small pile of cilantro, and looked over at him. He stood on the other side of my kitchen table, facing my dinner. Of my kitchen island, facing my dinner table. What? What? What did you just say? I screamed, well, knowing that he was going to reply. Better yet, knowing he wasn't going to reply. At this point, I was more freaked out about him replying than him not. He said nothing for a few minutes, so I went back to chopping the cilantro that got stuck to my blade with my finger. Oh Jesus, this actually sucks. Sorry for breaking the immersion. I know what it's personally like to have your finger cut. Basically, fear and a lot more overtook her. She's chopping very, very fast, frantically, and ends up cutting her finger. But as this starts to pick up, try to get as comfortable as you can, because this is whenever shit really starts to happen. Let's continue, shall we? Fuck, I yelled out loud while walking around and turned on the faucet, rinsing the knife in my finger. Natalia cut herself, and her blood oozes out, pleasing the one who watches, the narrator said. I turned the faucet off and turned around without saying anything, but extremely concerned. He hadn't moved, but I was sure that I heard him correctly. I walked over to the window on the wall towards my left and pulled the cord, shutting the blinds off as I became frantically paranoid. I swallowed and gulped. I managed to eat my dinner and do the dishes without any other weird comments and got ready for bed. As I got sleepier, I reached over and turned off the lamp by my bed, rolling over to my left side and closed my eyes. Natalia rolls over, closing her eyes and peacefully lying in bed. What she doesn't know, however, is that she will soon face a very horrible fate that will result in her death, the narrator said. I opened my eyes, sitting up and looking over his silhouette, slightly lit by the moonlight. I waited a few minutes. He said nothing else. The worst part is, I eventually fell asleep. I woke up the next morning and my alarm went off. Natalia wakes up and rolls over in her bed. One day closer to her inevitable death, the narrator says. I got up, walking into the bathroom, slamming the door shut, annoyed and scared. He had been narrating my entire life, and he had never said anything creepy or out of the ordinary. What the hell is going on now? Natalia washes her face, but she doesn't seem to realize it's much easier for someone to attack her when her eyes are closed. I immediately stopped the faucet and I rinsed the soap away from my eyes and looked at the reflection in front of me and at his standing behind me. I finished rinsing my face with my eyes open and managed to dry it without completely covering my eyes. The rest of my week went on pretty similar. Normal narrations for the most part, with some creepy stuff sprinkled in. For example, he is coming for her very soon. It is unavoidable. Natalia must die. That was the creepiest one he said to me. Every time he said something, I looked around at my surroundings, paranoid. I spent the entire week anxious and paranoid, over and over. I barely slept, thinking that anyone could come into the middle of the night, performing spontaneous surgery on me. I put a knife underneath my bedside drawer and pepper spray underneath my pillow. Yesterday, things got more creepier. Natalia's days are numbered was one of them. Natalia has been feeling anxious, as she should. The one who watches is arriving shortly. The one who watches is very excited to kill Natalia. And the worst one of all. There will be no escape. Only death. Only death. I didn't go out anywhere for fear of what would happen, what was going to happen. especially if it was going to happen sooner. Last night I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth and staring at his reflection behind me in the mirror. I swished mouthwash around in my mouth and he spoke. I know I've always said that this is the worst one yet, but this one is the one. Natalia brushes her teeth for the last time. Tomorrow, she dies. An automatic chill coursing down my spine. I spat out the mouthwash, choking on it a bit that made its way down my throat. I coughed and wheezed. Natalia choked on the mouthwash, feeling like she was dying. But it's not her time yet. Her time is tomorrow, he said to me. I managed to catch my breath and walked over to my bed, crawling in and leaving the lamps on. The last thing I need to be woken up at midnight is fighting off a killer in the dark. I woke up today a few hours before my alarm and got up. I was still alive, and nothing was out of place. Maybe I wasn't going to die. Maybe it was a fluke. I walked into the bathroom and grabbed my toothbrush. I squeezed out some toothpaste to brush my teeth and put the toothbrush in my mirror. I looked up into the mirror at my reflection and I froze. I spit into the sink and looked around the bathroom. I stuck my head into my bedroom and looked around there as well. I made my way through every single room in my house. He was nowhere to be seen. He was gone. 25 years, following me around and narrating my life, and now suddenly, when I was supposed to die, he disappeared. This made me feel worse. As I realized the things that he was saying was creepy, there was no helping me now by warning me how much time I had left. Now I had no warning, and no choice but to wait it out and see what happened. I can't shake the feeling knowing I'm going to die. But how? By who? Who was the one who watches? What did that even mean? These questions kept festering the entire day that I spent in my kitchen. I figured there are more exits here as well as weapons, and I'd probably be safer here than any other smaller room of the house. So far, nothing has happened. I've been sitting in silence, which is odd, because I've never been able to sit in silence. About an hour ago, all the lights began to flicker in the house. That only lasted for a few seconds, and then everything's back to normal. I still don't know what to expect, but I think I'm probably safer at my house until I heard the door ring. I got up and walked into the living room, walking to see what was peering through the peephole. It was him. He just stood outside on the porch, with his back to me as usual. I didn't move, I didn't even breathe as I just watched him standing there. He's still out there now, but he hasn't said a word. I'm still in my kitchen, but nothing. Not even knowing what to do. I could hear him mumbling outside the door a few moments ago, and I finally decided to get up and listen. 2,000, 1,999, 1,998, 1,997. He's still counting down. I basically added up everything that he's talking about. I have 20 minutes left. 20 minutes left to live. I can see that it's getting darker and darker outside. It's not even 3 o'clock in the afternoon yet. Every time I look outside the window, something disappears. A house on the street, a car, a tree. Whenever something vanishes, it's replaced with darkness. And it keeps counting down. This is my last chance at communication. I'm going to die. Honestly. Well, to prove that guy wrong, I would have just brushed my teeth. But essentially, poor Natalia is consumed by the void. That was her last attempt of communicating. Well, that was heavy. Very heavy. Acknowledging that that was her last moments. If you had someone narrating your life, and I mean your entire life, only to suddenly one day just say, very soon, you're going to die. And then one day, you wake up with him nowhere to be found. And you're paranoid. You're succumbing to the fear. Everything primal within you that grows negative. And he appears right back, counting down. And you realize you have 20 minutes left to live. 20 dreaded minutes. And as you look outside, as he counts everything down, to you, everything seems like it's going normal. Like it's 3 p.m. in the afternoon. But every time you look, you see the house across from you. You see the car placed outside. You see the family just on a bike ride. You see a street light. You see any and everything you can think of. And it disappears slowly, one by one, vanishing into thin darkness, into the void, until it slowly comes for you. In the meantime, let's try to find our next story. Remember, we're still on a timer ourselves. This person says, this story, the title of this story is, I can see people's auras in this curse. Yes, I can see people's auras, and I can hate saying it so bluntly. It makes me sound like a psychic hack who fakes the ability as a means of exploitation and a paycheck. I've never made money from my ability. I've never taken advantage of it. And until now, I've never spoken of it to anybody. But whether you believe me or not, I really do see them, and I'm starting to view it as more of a curse. I have a reason for typing this, and I assure you, there's no happy ending. For me, it's quite simple. I see a faint light surrounding people, everyone. And in that light, I can see their morality. The brighter and more translucent that person is, especially that light, the better the person is. The darker and things appear to be more opaque, the worse they are. Dim and partly translucent are morally ambiguous. To simplify these things, there are three ways I describe them. Dark light equals evil, bright equals good, and dim means somewhere in between. It's strange. I've always viewed the people with gray to dim auras as arbiters, the mediators, the people in between, who aren't one or the other, and will always have difficult decisions to make. Ever since I was a kid, I've always had this gift, and I was very aware of it. It didn't take long to figure out that the brighter auras were kinder and more selfless. While both my parents were good people, my father's aura was quite a bit brighter than my mom's. As a result, he was far more patient and understanding with me. It was clear to see that my teachers and fellow students with brighter auras were usually more friendlier and comprehensible. The dark ones, or the dark auras, were the stereotypical fighters, lunch money stealers, and bullies. I would say I was around 8 years old when I fully figured out that I would have a gift that most people won't have, is what I love to believe, that possibly nobody else has. I've heard of some new age websites and alternative medicine articles that give their take on aura reading. While I believe the vast majority of it is some bullshit, I expect there to be at least some people out there with my ability. So I don't want to completely dismiss those people and think of it as an outright hoax. It's just that for me, it doesn't work anything like that, especially the way that those websites describe it. I've visited numerous aura readers and psychics. Most of them have dim to dark auras themselves, and I'm certainly definitely not going to tell them about this power, or be at least aware that they hold this power. I'm not saying all psychics are terrible people. I've visited a few who have very bright auras. They were unable to convince me that that they have psychic powers, but they, at the very least, use this to decept and try to help people, which is understandable, but But there is one thing that I need you to understand, something that is a terrifying event to me. Before I get to that, I think there are a few more things I need to explain. I imagine many of you are curious as to what aura type is the common. I'm happy to tell you that the majority of people are somewhat dim and bright. I see very, very few dark auras. This isn't scientific, and I haven't traveled the world trolling out and just plotting charts and graphs, But I underestimate. No, I take that back. I'd estimate around 60% of people are brightish, around 25% dimmish, leaving just the 15% to be darkish. Again, these are estimates. There's definitely no precise difference because, well, I can't be able to look at the entirety of the world and just go, aha, I have no idea. But rest assured, there's more bright than dark. The next thing I'd love to discuss is children. I can see person's aura right from birth, and I've never encountered an aura changing as someone ages. I'm not sure what this means for the whole nature versus nurture debate, and I'm not saying that everyone with a dark aura always behaves terribly or vice versa. A person with a bright aura might be born in horrible conditions, getting a drug problem, and then resort to thievery to feeding their addiction. I think the difference is a bright aura thief with a horrible upbringing may rob somebody, but they would never intentionally hurt someone in the process. A dark aura thief would kill someone if they thought they could get away with it without a second thought. Another interesting note, the ratio between bright to dim and dark are similar, especially across all human activities. Whether I'm at a church or a death metal concert, it always seems to be the exact 60, 25 to 15% ratio. I once visited a federal prison and was shocked to see at least half the prisoners had bright auras. I had to be at the prison in person to see this because, well, I can't see auras within photos, television shows, movies, even mirrors. I can only see auras in the real world. Another strange thing. I can't see my own aura. I assume it would be on the brighter spectrum, but I can't see it. The brightest person I ever saw was a social worker. She shone so bright that it was difficult for me to even look at her. Based on the way people acted in her presence, I think that almost everyone around her could sense her brightness in a subconscious way. They loved her. She even donated a kidney to someone she barely even knew. She had a special needs adopted child. Most of the money she earned was donated to various charities, and that's the only little that I know of her. This woman shined so brightly that she scared me. It was scary that someone could be that good. But it wasn't as scary as the darkest person I ever saw. I was 20 years old at this time, leaving the club downtown at 2 a.m. A man quietly walked down the street. I didn't see him at first, but I noticed the light dimming around me. This man was so dark that he partly absorbed the light around him. I looked at him long and hard. He looked desperate, cruel, and callous. When he looked up and locked eyes with me, it made me fall back. He smirked, as though he knew what I could see. I saw his face up close. I would never forget that. And I recognized his mugshot a few weeks later in the newspaper. He killed his entire family in cold blood. I think I need to get this out now. The reason why I'm writing this all out. I fell in love a year ago. She didn't show nowhere near as bright as what I've seen before. But she surely wasn't dark or even dim. She was beautiful. Her sense of humor, her wit, her everything. She was my dream woman. And I never told her anything about the auras. I could go far more into her, but this isn't a love story. What's important is this. We fell in love. She got pregnant. We got married. And we were so happy. I remember hearing the buzz of my phone 2 months ago, and I remember excitement whenever I saw it's happening, come to the hospital. I remember my frustration when I got stuck in traffic, and I remember how long it took to find a parking spot. I remember shouting at a nurse, "What room is my wife in?" I remember bursting through the door and seeing the smile on my wife's face. I remember seeing the doctor, his light shining so bright as he told me, "Congratulations, it's a boy." The doctor held him up to me. But what terrified me next was all the light in the room dissipated. "No, this can't be," I remember saying. The doctor put him in my arms. The darkness around my son was so absolute that I could barely even see him. He was a void. He was so dark that the world barely even existed around him. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced. I started weeping. I think my wife and doctor thought that they were tears of joy, but they weren't. Lord up above knows that they weren't. I think back to that day with the dark outline around that man that murdered his family. It was up to that point. That man was the darkest I'd ever seen, but the darkness around my son was 1,000 times worse. And what could possibly be worse than murdering your entire family? What do I do? He's my son, you know? It's been 2 days. We're home now. But my son's darkness is so extreme that it dims the hallway leading down to his room. My wife knows something is wrong. I think she suspects I'm having regrets about having children at all. But if only she knew. Just 20 minutes ago, I stood above him, holding a pillow over his face, but I couldn't do it. Not yet, anyway. A man who could murder his 2-year-old baby. What color aura would his be? And here's a thought that keeps going through my mind as I sit here alone. The fathers of our worst. Basically, he talked about some very distinguishable figures throughout history. If their fathers knew what they would become, would they murder them in the cradle? Would they have the strength to hold on the pillow as long as it takes? I can see the door of my son's room from my office. The hallway always seems to be growing darker. I look down at my hands as I type this. Maybe I'm going crazy. But there seems to be an aura around my hands now. It's gray. It's dim. Maybe it's always been dim. I'm looking down at the pillow beside me, the grayish dim outline around my hands more apparent than ever. Maybe it's time. Maybe this is why I have this gift. It all comes down to right now. Maybe it's time. I think it's time. You know, there's a very, very interesting thought. What if that child with the void aura probably had the same thing as you? You never know, but this guy said, I'm not going to mess around and take that chance, you know? It's horrifying to act on an impulse, a chance, or anything like that. Basically, akin your son, your newborn, to Joseph Stalin. What he might grow to be something very horrid, but jeez. Jeez. That was depressing. Let's try to find the next story and hopefully we can forget something like that. As showing Doom, the Dark Ages. I love Doom. I am a 911 operator, and this is the most terrifying call of my career. 911, what is your emergency? Yeah, hi, this is going to sound kind of strange, but there's a man stumbling around in circles in my front yard. Could you repeat that, sir? He looks sick or lost or drunk or something. I just woke up to get a glass of water and heard snow crunching around underneath my front window, so I peeked out. I'm looking at him now. He's about 10 yards away from my window. Something is not right. What is your address, sir? 1617 Quarry Lane in Pinella Pass. I'm going to send a squad car your way, but that's quite a ways out. Are you alone in your house, sir? Yes, I'm alone. Can you confirm all of your doors and windows are locked? And stay on the phone with me, please. I know that my front is definitely locked, but I'm going to check my back door again really quick. There's a slight pause. I appreciate your help, by the way. I know this is kind of strange, but I really hope that... There's been a pause. Sir, are you still there? He's still in the yard. The yard, but he's what the fuck? He's upside down. Sir, stay on with me. What is happening? He's staring right at me. He's standing on his hands now. He's perfectly still, staring at me. He's doing a handstand, smiling at me and not moving. He's doing a handstand, sir? A handstand? I don't know how he's facing me and standing on his hands, and he's got a huge smile. He's perfectly still. What the fuck? Please get someone out here now. Sir, I need you to remain calm. I put up the call, and the officer is on his way. His teeth are huge. What the fuck? Please help me. Sir, I want you to try and keep an eye on him, but make sure your back door is locked again. We need to make sure all possible access points are secured. Can you tell me? Can you tell me through and confirm that your back door is locked? Okay, I'm walking backwards now. I'm keeping in my sight. My hand is on the back door knob now. It's locked. I need to check the deadbolt, so I'm going to keep my eyes off of him for a split second. Alright, sir. Help is on the way. Just stay on the phone with me. Everything's going to be alright. There's been a slight pause. Sir? Another slight pause. Sir, are you still there? His face is against the glass, he said. Sir, I need you to speak up. What's happening? I looked away for a split second, and now his face is pressed against my front window. His teeth are so huge, and he's still smiling. There's no color in his eyes. Jesus, please help me. Why won't it just fucking move? Sir, I need you to go to the nearest room and lock yourself inside of it. Do you have a basement or a bedroom that you can lock yourself in? He won't stop staring. He's going to hurt me. Sir, I need you to listen to me. Lock yourself somewhere safe until the officer arrives at your house. Can you hear me? Yes, I'm going to lock myself in my room. And you're positive you're alone in your house? Yes, I'm alone in the house. Wait a moment. He's moving. He's shaking his head. He's telling me no. He can hear us. He's telling me I'm not alone in the house. Sir, are you alright? I heard a loud noise. Is everything alright? Sir? And that's all. That's all that I heard lastly from that person. Well, let's sit here and just, that genuinely brought tears to my eyes, because let's have a heart to heart real quick as I wipe these tears away from my face. The mask is going to come off for a little bit. The best way that I like to encapsulate and endorse myself in these stories is try to think of this happening and occurring within your own household. For example, the asshole guy who 18 years later, you remember his mom being taken away from him because he she decided to acknowledge that woman, and well, for all we know, she could be within our presence and everything, whispering and talking. Or the last story, the one that I just said about a couple of seconds ago, that 911 operator. My heart goes out to first responders, heroes of any nature. That has to be utterly terrifying and devastating to try your best and just. There are some things out of your control. Something far more horrible beyond your comprehension, and just like that. Boom. But remember something. You're okay right now. You've always been okay. Just remember, one day at a time. I always like to believe that anything is what you make it, but that's something we have to see through to ourselves. I hope you have a glorious day, morning, night, whatever it is. And don't forget to be kind to yourself, or else things can become very grim.